Life is a quest for logic and reason. It is a quest to find balance between science and faith. Life is a quest for knowledge and understanding. But most importantly, it's a quest for personal discovery. Whatever your quest, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Welcome to Quest. Hi, Hunter. Welcome to the Quest podcast.
Hey, it's great to be on your show. We've admired your work for a long time, and it's a pleasure to be a guest on your show.
Well, thank you. Those are all kind words to say. You've actually been on one of the podcasts I produce already, Danceology, with Edita. So I did meet you there for the first time, and you were such a colorful character in the in the dance world that
So
I thought,
true.
it would be great to have you on this one and just chat about what you do. So before we get into anything, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I know you have this varied, crazy career. Give everyone the cliff notes of who Hunter Lisle is.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I'll try to make it short. Those that know me know I talk way too long. So, my name is Hunter Lisle. I'm originally from Lexington, Kentucky, and I grew up here. I had the fortune of traveling and being with Arthur Murray Dance Studio since I was 12 years old, actually. And it opened a lot of doors. As a kid, I was a magician, I was a speaker. I did just pretty much everything and always some type of entertainer or performer, it seems like, in my life. And I've been back in Lexington for, gosh, almost 25 years, and we started the studio from scratch. It's grown to be very big. We can talk about that later. And I've worked with president. I've worked with celebrities, all kinds of crazy people. And everybody can learn to dance. That's one thing we've preached since day one. But I like to have philosophy and have some fun and hopefully help people and just have a good time. And that is probably the shortest I could probably do. There's a lot of stories in between all of that, whatever you want to talk about.
For sure, for sure. Well, let's talk about the Arthur Murray first. So
Sure.
your studio, your school is pretty prestigious, I believe. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this data. Are you the largest Arthur Murray in the country, or
Yes,
just the most successful Arthur Murray in the country?
I would say a little bit of both. We're the largest as far as teaching goes, and we've taught more lessons in the world than any school in the world for almost 20 years straight. And
Wow.
that's pretty cool because those are private lessons, that people come in one-on-one and they're learning to dance. And so with our staff, we're very lucky. We have a great staff. They're very experienced. They've been with us for a long time, and they just do a great job. They love to work, to teach, to help people. So, on average, I mean, we'll teach between 200 to 500 lessons a week, and it's wild. I mean, it's a lot. It's always busy. It's always exciting. And yes, one of the most successful. We've been very, there's a lot of successful studios. With Arthur Murray, there's a lot of good people. There's just great people in the industry. And I've been with it since I was 12, started teaching at 15, if you can believe it. And just enjoyed helping people. Didn't know a whole lot of what I was doing at that time. And it's amazing that when I was 15, anyone actually learned to dance. But, there you go. And then along the way, we just kept perfecting it.
For those audio only listeners of the Quest podcast, I'll say Hunter is actually 125 years old. So he's been doing this a really long time. I'm kidding.
Yeah, at least
Kidding.
on video, I look good for that old, right? Over 100 years, it's the skincare regimen, it's the filters, all that. So yeah,
well,
actually, I had a birthday last week and turned 54, and I was like, I'm grateful to
well,
be 54. I'm like, every year is a good year.
well, we're the same age, so
That's cool. You look good, man. You look great. You do a lot of good work. So
for the
we try to
audio
have
only
fun.
listeners, did you hear that? I look great.
You did. We'll save that on audio. So those who are listening will definitely want to watch
That's
now.
right. Okay, let's dig into Arthur Murray a little bit more
All right.
because obviously on Danceology, people know dance. So for those
Mhm.
people that aren't really familiar with it, I think there's probably I think maybe a consumer perspective of Arthur Murray that this is where you go to learn your wedding dance. But
Yeah.
there's more than that, right? Like you get people that become competitive dancers in this system.
We really do. Arthur Murray has actually been around since 1912. We never got to work with him himself, the person himself, but we've been with the company for a long time. And Arthur Murray stands for quality because when you come in, we teach all levels. Like you say, people come in for their weddings, but they also come in for social events, for a cruise, for getting ready for a charity event. If you're a couple, you get to spend time together. If you're a single person, you get to meet people. I had a couple come in yesterday and said, "Do you teach singles?" I'm like, "We have singles all the time, but you don't need a partner. When you come in, we partner you with a teacher, trying to make it easy." And my joke has always been, if you can walk in the door, you can learn to dance. And Arthur created a system that was so easy. They nicknamed it the magic step. So he had one step that he created, and it was in Foxtrot many, many years ago. he figured out that he could take that one step and combine it into 100 different patterns. And by doing that, he nicknamed it the magic step. So it's kind of neat because everything is broken down into basic elements of dancing. If you can walk in, you can walk, you can move. By the first lesson, you're learning and you're having fun. And in a few lessons, you get really comfortable and you can go out dancing and have a great time.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Now, competitors for Arthur Murray, is dance sports still a thing? Like, are there still official dance sports studios out there?
Yeah, it's a word that gets misused and thought about all the time. So dance sport, think of that like a generic term, and we use that to define like competition dancing. And at Arthur Murray, we teach all levels up through the highest level. We've actually trained some of the United States champions. So again, and we've judged for all the world and not, for all the larger competition in the whole world. So we're part of Arthur Murray, the NDCA, the WDC, all the powers that be that create
Sure.
these things. So dance sport could be anything that relates to competition. And really anybody can compete. People come in the door not thinking they're going to do that. And then as they get into it, they go, I love this. I want to do it for social reasons. And maybe I want to, push myself. I want to find my personal best. So I look at competition like you are competing against someone else, but you're really competing against yourself because you're trying to develop what's in here and you're
Sure.
performing for yourself, for your partner, and for the audience and the judges.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
You mentioned people come to Arthur Murray for events. You host a pretty big event every year, Dancing with the Lexington Stars. Let's
Yes.
talk about that a little bit. I know you're really
We,
proud of this event.
I really am. We believe it or not started the event originally in 2010, and then that year we were going to continue with a different charity. And I got contacted that year, 2011, by Rotary of Lexington, and so we decided to partner with them. We co-founded the event to make it bigger that year, and it was Dancing with the Lexington Stars. And what we do is we raise money for surgery on Sunday for people that can't afford surgeries. They really just can't afford them, and so we donate to that. We've raised over almost $2 million now for them, and for all the other charities that are involved in this event through Rotary. And it's been a lot of fun. So we bring in local celebrities from the community, usually 8 to 12 of them a year. We donate all the lessons, and they partner with a teacher. So they get out there and they've got to pick a dance, and then they've got to do that dance. And it's a little nerve-wracking because it's outside of their comfort zone big time. We've had 2 come in this week. Our event this year is May 10th. And it's at the Carrick House in Lexington. It will sell out. It always does. In fact, we're bringing back a couple people from Dancing with the Stars. We're bringing Edita and her husband. And then because Anna Trubinskaya is a good friend, we're bringing her as well. So, because she helped us for so many years. And then when she couldn't do it, Edita came in and said, I'll do it. So we love both of them dearly. And we've had everybody on the show. We've had Chelsea Hightower, Lacey Schwimmer, Louis Van Amstel. There's about 10 from the show that have been here in Lexington. And every year it gets bigger. It's May 10th. We have music, orchestra. It's like, it's like a DJ. It's really cool, actually. So yeah, we're very proud of it. And I get very passionate talking about it because it's something that everybody gets a little excited. They get nervous, and then they come in and they just have a ball. One of the competitors came in last night for the first time. She is an athlete for UK athletics. And she came in and she said, as much as I've been an athlete, I am scared to death. And when she got on the floor, the teacher took her hand, they guided her. And by the end of the lesson, she was like, okay, I'm ready for my next one. This is too much fun. So that was exciting.
Wow. Is that someone who will be in Dancing with the Lexington Stars?
Yeah.
You can't name them yet, though, but
not yet. I would love to say who it is. We've got 9 competitors this year, and we've had 2 of them come in already. Monday, I'm going to be making calls and trying to get more of them in the get them booked and everything. But they came in for the first time this week, and if they start early, it's a lot more fun because they get 12 lessons to get ready for this thing. So they got to pick their dance. We choreograph the whole thing. We make it effortless. And that night, they get out there and they perform. And there's 2 awards. There's one for the judges, where the judges pick the best dancer, and there's one for the people's choice. And that means votes. Obviously, it's for charity, so they're trying to raise money. And the one that raises the most money wins that award. So it's pretty cool. And all the money goes to charity. We don't keep any of it. We want everybody to just really be a part of this. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about some of the Lexington celebrities that have been on in the past. Have you had? So did you have Maria Montgomery on? I can't remember because she's been a podcast guest of mine. Did she? Yeah.
Yeah. Maria's wonderful. Yeah, she was on one year and she danced with Aaron Jones, and she's a lovely lady, just got married, and we've known her we've been friends for a long time. And she came into it and we did an interview about that year. We did a couple interviews during COVID, which was hilarious because we were, socially distanced and masks on and everything. But we did some fun things, and she's really a great dancer, very, very talented. We've had her. We've had athletes. We've had Derek Ramsey with basketball, Jack Givens from UK Athletics. We've had, you name it. And actually one of the basketball players is in our studio this year. If I had known that, I might have invited him to join it. Andrew Carr from UK, who's doing great with Pope for UK basketball, takes lessons with us. And it just kind of came about coincidentally. And so we've had basketball, we've had football. We had Josh Caddis, who was with UK football last season. And oh man, they got out there and they had a ball. He literally jumped over his partner. I mean, it was like it brought the house down. And we've had
Yeah.
local newscasters. We've had from every network, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and everybody comes in and dances. So yeah, lots of great celebrities.
Any politicians ever part of this?
We have. And it's a debate because with a politician, we try to troll because we want everybody to have a great time. So we've
Yeah.
been reticent to invite politicians, but over the years we've had a couple, and to their credit, they never really get political during it.
Yeah.
Like one of our councilwomen, Jennifer Reynolds, she's amazing. We were talking about her last night because she did it, loved it, and we're thinking about maybe having her back again and talk to her Monday. But anyway, for next year. But anyway, they're all really nice people. The only thing we haven't had is a governor. So one of these days, maybe we'll get a Kentucky governor. We've taught a lot of them, but maybe one day we'll have them join in, hopefully.
Any master distillers that show up and want to dance?
No, but that would be so much fun. We've actually talked about that. And in fact, when
Bring the
Edita
bourbon
comes,
community in. You got to. It's just as much part of Kentucky.
it is. I would love your help on that because, again, it's funny. I don't really drink a lot, but it's like, or any really anymore because it's just, I like certain things, but I try to stay healthy. But we would love to do that. And I know when Edita comes, she's bringing her husband. So we want to take him on the bourbon distillery tour and take him around the horse farms. We teach a lot of the horse people in town, both thoroughbred, really everything, show horses, hunter, everything pretty much. So a lot of the horse people are involved as well. So it'd be fun to take everybody on a tour. You need to help me get the distilleries involved because that would be a lot of fun, actually.
The bourbon ballroom.
There you go. Now you're talking. I think that
Sounds
would
like
be
a different
wonderful.
event to me.
So okay, here's my only bourbon story for you. So one year, and I don't know a lot about alcohol. Like I drank when I was 40, and then I tried to be more healthy. So I quit caffeine, quit alcohol. I still like it. I just tried to be more healthy. And so that's been a few years ago. One year we went to a charity event and there was a bid on a bottle that was about this tall and I didn't know what it was. So I bid like $100 just to get it started. And the next day they called and they said, "Oh, you got the bottle." I'm like, "What is it?" They said it's called Pappy. It was Pappy
Oh,
Van Winkle.
that's
I had
great.
no, yeah,
That's a great deal.
we've never opened it. Yeah, later I found out what that was worth and we've never opened it. It's on my shelf, literally. But
That's
you
an
never know.
investment bottle right there. If you hit hard
That's
times, you drop that on eBay.
that's what everybody told me. I had no idea what it was, honestly.
The
And
mortgage gets
then
paid that month with that bottle.
there you go. Exactly. I did find out that later. I was like, so I'll just save it for a rainy day. And there you go. Maybe when you come to visit, we'll take it out then or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny about Pappy because I don't think it's the best tasting bourbon, but it is one of the most valuable bourbons.
No
Like I have
kidding.
different favorites that I have, but
What
yeah,
is your
Pappy.
favorite? Yeah.
I like E.H. Taylor is my favorite.
Uh-huh.
That's been mine for a while, but a lot of the Pappy line is like it's basically the Weller brand. Weller
Hmm.
is Pappy. It's really the same. It's really the same thing, just a different branding.
Interesting.
So if you want
Yeah.
to drink Pappy cheaper, buy a good bottle of Weller. So it's a little tip
Okay.
out there for all the bourbon enthusiasts. But
Yeah. All the listeners are now going to go get that. You realize. So that's good. You're letting
I had
everybody
a
go get it.
I had a television show called The Bourbon Lounge, which went three
Uh-huh.
seasons,
Oh,
which has been a
cool.
little over 10 years ago. It aired on Fox. And so it was taped live in Louisville. And
Wow.
we had all the master distillers come in with incredibly rare bottles of bourbon and talk about their product lines and their distilleries and the history of
Wow.
things. And it was a lot of fun. So I got my bourbon degree over those 3 years.
I can't wait. I'm going to look that up. I'll have to watch it tonight because I mean, I've seen some of your productions and of course, all the audio and video. And everything. You really are good at that. So I look forward to watching that.
Let's talk about let's go back to the studio for a moment. How
Yeah.
I'm curious, we're getting a little bit away from COVID now, like it's
Yeah.
becoming history for everyone, but I'm curious with being a studio owner, how did you deal with COVID? Was that a very
Uh,
scary time? Did you think there was a time where maybe you wouldn't reopen, or like how did that affect you?
Yeah, I still get chills to be honest with you. I mean, it was one of the craziest, scariest times of my life as far as, we've been in the business. I've been in it since I was literally 15 years old working, and we've never had a bad year. We've been busy every year, growing every year. and then everything just stopped. And we kept going as long as we could. We taught literally as long as we could. We had all the protective measures in place, but it got to a point where people just were afraid to come, and we shut down for quite a few months actually. And there were a
Wow.
lot of studios. There was about 36% of all dance studios in the country shut down for good during that
Wow.
time. And I have to say, there was a moment where I thought, what are we going to do? Because everything just stopped. And we've, even during like 9/11, even during times of crisis or the 2008 crisis, people need an outlet. They need a place to go. They need entertainment and something to give hope and to look forward to. So we were busy during that period. But during this period, it was a different story. So we did shut down. We got back on track. We were very lucky. We had the wherewithal to withstand it and to keep pushing. We kept all of our staff. We didn't lose anybody, and we kept growing. And so we're back to normal now. But during that season, I remember we cleaned out our garage 3 times. I rented a front loader, and I mean, I've stayed at home and got very bored. And looking back, I would probably change a few things. I wouldn't have been as afraid, maybe, but we all just followed everything we could to stay safe, and everybody did. But it was something. We had some people that got very sick. We had some people that didn't, and you try to protect people, so you try to protect people that need it the most. But we did. We shut down, and we tried teaching online. Some studios did that better than others. In the northwest area of the world of the United States, they did that very well. We didn't find that to be very successful. We did it some, but most people, it's hands-on. You want to be in person, and
Right.
so yeah, that time was one of the most scary, weird times of my life. And I remember just looking around like, will this ever end? The first 2 weeks we thought it's going to stop, and then it was like another week. I'll tell you the most surreal moment. You can laugh about this. There was one night toward the beginning of all of it, and I was in the studio, and one of our students walked up and she says she had gone to Kroger's that night and came back, and she said, "There's no toilet paper." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So that night when I got done, I went to Kroger's, and I remember walking through the store and seeing no paper products in anywhere. And that was to me one of the most defining weird moments of the pandemic, because I remember being incredulous. I'm just like walking through going, "There's nothing here." And it was, so that stuck in my mind quite a bit from that year, just because I couldn't believe it, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was shortages of lots of stuff. Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
You mentioned how many dance studios shut down after COVID. There's actually been, and no one's really covering this, but there's been a lot of dance studios shut down in the last year, the last 18
Mhm.
months because of
Yeah.
inflation.
Yes.
Part of my company, World Arts Academy, which is a dance education company,
Yeah.
um, a lot of studios that have been open for, 14, 15, 20
Mhm.
years shut
Yeah.
down last summer because
Yeah.
what's happening is landlords are increasing the cost of space. And, in dance, you need a lot of square footage. And a lot of
You
these
do.
types of buildings are in, strip malls, industrial spaces where you can get the square
Mhm.
footage you need and they can't afford it anymore.
No.
And there's a bubble, right? Like you can only pass on so much cost to the customer before they're like,
Correct.
we can't do it. And those
No.
families are getting hit with inflation too.
They
And
are.
when families have inflation, what's the first thing you cut? You cut the gym memberships, you cut the dance lessons for the kid, you start cutting out streaming apps, things like that. Like you got to trim the fat.
Mhm.
So lots and lots of studios shut down. I have this very extensive dance database
Yeah.
with well over 10,000 dance studios around the country.
Wow.
Probably one of the most extensive databases that there is.
Huh.
And it was really sad to go down that list to regular customers
Mhm.
and see, hey, we're shutting down after 14 years. And I was like,
Right.
wow, this is
Yeah.
crazy.
The fact you know all that and you get that list, when you see it in a list form quantitatively, it really is eye-opening. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of studios, they rest on their laurels, and it's like you have to look at it two ways. Like you said, there's a threshold of dollars. If you charge a price that's too high, the market won't bear it, and then people say, "I'm done." But you also have to pay your bills, so
Hmm.
you're always looking at volume and trying to help new people as well as the people that are already there. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've seen over the years is that people, as they get started, they rely on the students that have been there for a long, long time for too long. And unfortunately, life happens. Someone gets married, or they get divorced, or they're a widow, or they just move away, or something happens financially, and then
Yeah.
that student is gone. And those studios that rely on that one person, they're out of luck. So I
Yeah.
always kind of believe in keeping the pipeline as full as we can for all of the instructors. We always think about that every day. Unfortunately, it's not a stress, but it's something that never really leaves you, because you're always thinking about, how do I help more people, and how do I balance the number of teachers with the number of students? Because you always
Right.
either have one of too much of one. So you're trying to balance it. And it's not easy. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you said, we see the databases, and it's a shame, because these are good people, that run these studios, and they have families, they have kids, and you don't want to see them go away.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And some communities, it's not like that. Like one of the producers of these podcasts, my partner Anthony, his
Uh-huh.
daughter is enrolled in dance in Boulder, Colorado, and the cost
Hmm.
just keeps going up in Boulder for
Hmm.
his. It's so expensive for him to put his daughter in
Hmm.
dance, as well as
Yeah.
the summer camps and all the other stuff. But I think that that pocket of
Yeah.
Colorado affords it, and they just don't blink, and they just keep paying it, and it just
Right.
nothing, no prices never get cut. They only ever
Yeah.
go up is the problem,
Yeah.
right? Like once you realize, oh, okay, we pushed the price of eggs up a little bit more and people will pay
Right.
it, it's never coming back down. It's kind of
No.
like gas.
No, it really is.
You and
No,
I
I
are
can.
old enough to remember when gas was 50 cents a gallon, right? And
Yes.
then
Oh, yeah.
remember in the late 70s it hits $1 and people freaked
Uh-huh.
out.
Everywhere. Everybody freaked out completely. And now it's like, we don't think about it as much, but you're right. It changes. And I can tell you one weird statistic that so far, knock on wood, I don't want to claim this, I might jinx it, but we only raised our price once in about 25 years. And, again, but that takes a lot of work. I mean, we had 8 staff members last week working a wedding show to help people for their weddings. And I mean, it was nonstop. It was a great wedding show here in Lexington. We sponsor most of them and we're with them. But I mean, it was work. It was nonstop. And you're trying to help, but there's all different levels of that. And I think it's a constant balance. I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
everybody thinks running a studio, running a business is easy. It is not. You do it every day and you just work your best and try to help people. And when you see the inside of it, like you have, you see these families, you see these studios, and you don't know. They're either going to keep going. Most studios within the first 2 to 5 years is when you're going to know if they're going to make it or break it. The
Yeah.
next 10 to 15 is another critical point. Usually then about 20 to 25, 30, 20, give or take, that's a different phase. Just like teachers, they go through phases. And a dance teacher in ballroom or Latin or social dance or competitive, 2 years and under, 2 years to 5, 5 to 20. And there's different stages in their development where they succeed or they fail. And if you've been around long enough, you kind of know what those are. And you try to hopefully help
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
That's great information. I'm really liking this kind of deep dive into the dance studio owner
Happy to.
world.
Yeah.
With World Arts Academy, what we do is we just have it's top tier instructors we take around the country to teach dance to kids who really can't afford dance or don't get
Yeah.
access to good instruction.
Hmm.
So we don't have the building, we don't have the brick and mortar. We go,
Right.
we're either being hosted by a facility like that or we're renting a space like that.
Uh-huh.
In some cases, maybe a hotel ballroom, for we can't
Hmm.
find the dance space that we need.
Right.
But the reason why this started 25 years ago, this company was, um, I always felt there shouldn't be a paywall to
Hmm.
people learning dance. That's the thing,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, why should we make someone pay to learn such a fundamental thing, right?
Right.
So I get like the capitalistic side of it, why someone would be an entrepreneur and would want to start a school and do these things. But then also, I think a lot of people are cheated out of
Hmm.
dance because they just can never afford it. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of communities too where, if you're not in Boston and you live
Hmm.
3 hours west of Boston in Ashby, Massachusetts, you might not
Hmm.
get the best
Uh-uh.
level of Irish step dancing that you could possibly learn.
No, that's
So,
right. Yeah.
sometimes the best teacher in your local area is one of the worst teachers in the country. So-
I know it's so true. It's such a balance. I mean, and we're different in the sense that like our philosophy was different. We first opened, we wanted to reach more people. Like what you said, we wanted to make it affordable for anyone. So there's students that come in that might take one private lesson a month, and then but we have group classes 40 times a week, so they can come to those for free. So we've made that free for years for everybody. So and then there's other students that want to go at a faster pace, and they can do that. So they might book one private lesson a week or 5 times a week, and it really fits everybody. I was looking at that last night. We had like a glow party where it's like black lights and fun, and all these people, we were packed, and it was like, but there are people in there that do once a month, and there are people in there that do 5 times a week, and nobody knows what everybody does. They just have a great time, and it's
Sure.
really cool because you can tell. I told one lady this week I was talking to, I said, whatever you want to afford and whatever you want to do, we will make happen, and we did for her, and she literally burst into tears. She was like, I thought I couldn't do this, not that I physically couldn't, but I couldn't afford it, and we made it possible, and she
Yeah.
was so sweet, and she had been thinking about it for years, and finally got the courage to come in. If you can walk in the door, you can dance. It's that first step
Right.
that gets it right. But the fact that you've done that for 25 years is wonderful. I mean, you had that initiative to start that.
Yeah. That was always the
Oh,
the plan for that. because like if you can get a chance to learn from a master instructor, you have to
Yeah,
travel for that opportunity. You got to go to
yeah,
like they don't go to small communities. They don't go to Louisville or to Little Rock or a lot of cases Nashville and Macon, Georgia, and other places like that. So we take these instructors to these places
uh,
where they may not get that opportunity without enrolling in a showstoppers convention or something
right,
big, some big epic thing that costs so much money that's really built
yeah,
for people that want to compete. Um,
hmm,
and I think a lot of like local dance facilities that are ballet, tap, jazz facilities,
yeah,
that you walk in these facilities and they have walls of trophies, and then you realize that's what this place is about. And the other
right,
factor of the paywall in dance, the other thing is there's no losers in dance,
right,
and that's the other thing. And I think that's too ingrained in people these days is, oh, if you're not winning medals or being the best or doing this, I
yeah.
think that breeds a lot of problems in people.
I think you're right. And I think Dancing with the Stars, we were fortunate to be a part of it since season one, and we got to work with the show and work with everybody on all the things we did. But it was a blessing and a curse because people saw it and they said, "Oh, well, we can do that. If they did it, we can do it." But on the other hand, they said, "Well, yeah, but they're competing. They're getting an award. They're getting that." And some people came in saying, "Well, we don't want to compete. We want to just be a good dancer." And that's when we had to educate people to say, "We do both, and it's really up to you what you want to accomplish." And don't let the
Yeah,
trophies scare you. I mean, we have those too, but it's like don't let that be the
sure.
thing if that's not what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting on the television show on Dancing with the
Yeah.
Stars, people are going to win the mirror ball trophy, right?
Mhm.
But you really feel as a viewer of the show that you're really watching people improve through the
Yes.
show. And they
Yes.
really make sure they always edit it to where it always feels like you're rooting for people to want to improve.
Yes. I
I
think
think
that's
that
wonderful.
they do a good job of that.
They really do. And I think that's part of the success of the show. And the one year they did an all-star year, and it wasn't the ratings went down a little bit. And it was like, I think it was because you lost a little of the momentum of the newness, and we did that locally too one year. And the same thing happened. The energy changed. And I think you've got the ABC, they do a great job with this, Hulu, Disney, with really making it look progressive. And people are doing that. You got people out there that I remember when Bobby Bones was on it with the radio, with the radio station. We had done an
Right.
interview with him that year, and I got to speak with him, and I said, "What did you think was the hardest?" And he said, "Well, just getting on the floor." And I was like, and he ended up doing pretty well that year. But so he had a following. So you got the fans that vote, you got the judges, but everybody tries. Even despite all the drama, everybody out there is still nervous, and they really do try. For 99% of the time, they're very nice people, and they try really hard.
Right, right. So I'm going to pivot over to something else. So,
Yeah.
did I read somewhere that you were a thoroughbred owner?
Yes. Yeah. I've had several horses. So that started one year. Of course, we live in horse country. I
You're in
grew up,
horse country.
yeah, we never had any growing up or anything like that, but I always liked the horses. And we always went to Keeneland when I was a kid and things like that. So, when I got in the studio, early on, there was a bloodstock agent who was a friend of ours, and he said, "You want to do a horse?" And this is way back. And so my first horse we did was called Murray Dancer. We got to name her, and I couldn't name her Arthur Murray because they wouldn't let me, but I did name her that. Now, she didn't do very well. She didn't grow very far. And so the partner bought me out, and they were very kind to me. And so I had a great first experience. And then along the way, I partnered with several horses, and we owned another filly. Like later, the last one we had was Devil Went to Georgia, and she was a great filly. And we bought and sold a few. Still, I'm a TOBA member, Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association. Still love horses. I don't have any right now, but yeah, we did that. And it's an interesting industry from the inside because it gets a lot of good press and a lot of bad press. And there was a reality show early on after we bought Devil Went to Georgia, and it was going to be on TV. It was greenlit, and it was going to be called The Syndicate. And it was about all the crazy people that get in the horse world. And, you had doctors, lawyers, dance studio, and so they were going to do the show. So we interviewed for it, and it was going to be a go. And then something happened with one of the other groups, and then they just cut it. But
Mm,
maybe it was a blessing in disguise. But they were trying to make the show be a positive light on the thoroughbred industry, and really
right.
show the fun and the positive. But yeah, we've had a couple horses.
Because like the 6 horses you had are now glue, right? Is that the is that the bad part of
Well,
the
God, oh gosh, I don't know if I can comment on that now.
Oh.
The last one went on to become she bred some horses, and and there, I think the baby from that horse is now racing. We keep in touch just
Yeah.
by Facebook, and the owner lives in Florida now, and she's a good friend. So a lot of the horses we like to see them humanely treated. I mean, we love animals,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
and we support Humane Society. We do a lot of things with animals. So yeah, you always hope that when they don't race anymore, that they find a good purpose, that they could become a therapy horse, or they could become a horse that helps someone, or they breed them, or they just kind of get retired. And then, our neighbors across from us where we live, they had some horses like that at one point where they were just basically put there for people to enjoy, and the horse got to enjoy the people. So I love when I hear those kind of stories, and you always hope for a happy outcome.
Yeah. For happy outcomes, when the apocalypse comes, those horses are going to be very valuable again. Those are our new cars, people. I'm telling
I
you,
know if you know how to
treat
ride, you'll be in good shape. That's right.
treat the horses well. They're your transportation one day in the
That is
near
right.
future.
Well, we had the snow apocalypse last week, and I know we were trying to schedule this, and I appreciate your flexibility because we lost power like 4 times, and then finally the heat went out, and I'm like, we'll get it back. But it all comes back on. But yeah, we called that the snow apocalypse last week, and I felt sorry for all of our students. You talk about cancellations. Friday night we canceled the whole day, and I mean we literally had to cancel almost 100 lessons. And finally I walked outside, and we don't ever close. Like we're one of those places that just never closes down. And I walked out there and I did a video in front of the sleeting because it was getting so bad. I was like, okay, I give up. We can't keep doing this. And then last night was back to normal. We were packed again. But the horse industry is a fun topic to talk about. I do enjoy it still, and I enjoy watching it.
Kentucky's an interesting state because it's so unique in a number of ways. What you have with Churchill Downs and Derby Day is like that's the Mardi Gras of Kentucky in a way, and a
Yeah,
huge. If people haven't seen it, it's a bucket list item for a lot of people. And of course,
absolutely.
bourbon is only from Kentucky. It
Yes.
has to be made
Oh yeah.
in Kentucky to be called bourbon. And of course, you have the horse racing industry.
Yeah,
Horses is it's so diversified in a number of ways.
it
Um,
is.
Back in the old days when I used to work in film and TV, I had a script that I put together that was like um, it was like in the horse racing community, but it was like
Hmm.
an Ocean's 11 movie.
Oh wow.
And what it was about, I never made this. There was just a script for
Yeah.
it. And it was about this group of like super criminals that want to extract the DNA from Secretariat, who is
Oh
a Triple
wow.
Crown winner, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the
Yeah.
greatest horses that ever ran,
Yeah.
because their theory was they would genetically clone Secretariat. So it was like a scientific version
Wow.
of Ocean's 11, that they want to extract the DNA of Secretariat, breed this horse that's a genetic clone of Secretariat, and then race it to win
Oh
these
wow.
races. So it was this big caper, is what it was. And so it was really kind of a thinking man's caper, because a lot of people think, well, how the horse was trained is
Hmm.
how it won. Maybe it wasn't its genetics. And other people say, no, the genetics made it be a winner. So I thought it was a really interesting dynamic of how they were going to try and raise this
Wow.
horse to be exactly like the original so that it could go out and just dominate everywhere.
Wow. How cool is that?
Is that interesting?
That is very interesting. Yeah.
There's
Thank
a
you
lot
for
of
that.
people that think there's never been a horse like Secretariat since
No, there's a
Secretariat.
lot. Oh yeah, there are some great horses, but again, there's some legends as well. The fact you created, I love the Ocean's 11 spin on that for the horse industry. That's pretty cool, actually. I would
Rather
like to
than
see
robbing
that.
Vegas, we're robbing a horse's grave, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Well, yeah, they might come after you. You never know. But the horse industry is pretty crazy. It's pretty fun, and the people in it make for a good story sometimes too. So that's cool. I'll have to try to watch that. Where did you air that? Where did you show it?
No, well, that's just a story, just a
Yeah,
script
yeah.
I wrote.
That's a
It
good
never
one.
went anywhere, but
Oh, that's a good one.
but I just thought it was a fun story to
Yeah.
think about, if that was, because I think if you just think about the idea of the story, like, is that even
Hmm.
possible? Like,
Oh
cloning is
yeah.
so controversial anyways, and I don't think
Yeah.
there are like real rules about that in horse racing right
Hmm.
now. And it's like, could you make a ringer?
Wow.
You know,
Wouldn't that
and
be
there's so
something?
much money in horse racing. Like, if you made a
Hmm.
ringer,
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
and it wouldn't be doping or anything, like, because that's
No.
the scandal these days, is doping
Right.
horses, right?
Yeah.
Like, of
Yeah.
course you're going to get a horse to run fast when you've doped it up with stuff, but like
Yeah.
a clone, I don't think that the horse racing organizations have rules on that yet. So if
No.
you cloned
No.
one of the
Wow.
greatest horses ever and you
Wow.
put all the money on those races, could you
Yeah.
just really clean up?
That would be something to look at because I mean it's all physiology. And like when you're looking at horses, you're looking at bone structure, musculature, and it's just like dancing. It's ironic how similar it is because you're watching like when you judge and you judge a competition, you're watching for the best dancers, obviously, and picking them out. But also part of it is physicality. I mean,
Hmm.
you can see different things. And with the horses, I was never good at betting on horses, but buying them was decent because I would look at the musculature and look at what I could see with the animal, just like with people. I mean, you can tell athletes and you can see things pretty quickly if you've done it long enough. And it's like, and it all comes down to that. So genetic structuring, that would be interesting with a horse for a story. You might have a major film there. That might be kind of interesting.
I have to dust that script off. Oh, Hunter, we have a little bit of time left and then we got to run, but I want you to tell, you've had this crazy life and all these experiences and all these things that you've done. And people should go over to the Danceology podcast to listen to your interview over there too, because it's a little different what Edita covers, but I want them to hear that. But I want you to go back into your past outside of thoroughbreds and dancing and tell me one crazy story from your past.
Okay. So when I was a kid, I was a magician. I did magic, and I got to meet one time and work with Harry Anderson. And actually, it's a long story, but I was amazed by the guy. He passed away several years ago, but I was able to learn from him. And at one point, I actually had his cards. There was a TV show, believe it or not, this is a long story, on Showtime. And it was called Hello Sucker. It was with Harry Anderson. At the end of that show, he does the 3-card Monty with these big, gigantic 3 cards. And I actually own those 3 cards and learned to perform that. And I don't do a lot now. I do more sleight of hand just for fun, really for mental, just to kind of keep myself going. So that was a crazy story. And one year alongside of that, about the same year, met a guy who said, "You want to learn fire eating?" And I'm like, "Sure." So that year I became a fire eater. And, and I don't recommend, it's a hot act to follow. So, and you got to watch out for heartburn. But anyway.
Oh boy.
Sorry, the jokes are terrible. Sorry, I apologize.
He's terrible at stand-up, folks.
I need to keep my day job. But that was a funny story back then. When I learned the fire eating, though, to end the story, I was doing it in a mall one time. And what they didn't tell me is you got to make sure there's no AC running when you do this. So I had this large crowd, all these around me, and I'm doing literally real fire eating. And I get down on one knee because I was low ceiling. And as I did this, the AC kicks on and it blows the flame right back into me, took out my eyebrows, both of them, and burned every hair off my face. And I remember I remember my mom, I was young. My mom was she was like, "You cannot ever do that again." And I learned the hard way, but I did that for years. It's a lot of fun. Again, you know me, I could probably talk forever. I got to meet you first on the podcast with Edita, and then I really looked up your work, and I was so impressed with what you do that I was like, man, we got to do something together. And so that's my short version of a funny story. As you know, I've got so many stories I could probably talk for 2 hours, which is probably good. I'll bore all your listeners, but that was probably one of the fun ones, is learning. And recently, the last part of that was magic. Got me back into it. I was watching Steve Martin, and years ago, we always liked Steve, and we like Martin Short. And Steve Martin was on TV doing the very first card trick he ever learned, and it was called Time Warp. And I sat up one night about 4 weeks ago, before Christmas, and I've taught myself that trick because I was like, okay, I got to relearn. It was so much fun to go back and learn that again, and then to perform it, and just something enjoyable, something a little bit different.
That's great. That's great, Hunter. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Come back for season 8. And do it again. But tell everyone out there how they can find you out there on social media and the interwebs.
Oh, thank you so much. If you're looking for me personally, Instagram is I am Hunter Lisle. Facebook is just my name, Hunter Lisle. The dance studio, if you go to the website, dancingiseasy.com, you can sign up, try a free lesson, get started. Our website has been rebuilt last year, and they did a great job with it. So it's dancingiseasy.com. You can always call the number in Lexington. I always say it a million times, 859-278-7711, and you can learn to dance. And don't be afraid. That's what I tell everybody. Don't be afraid. Get started. If you want me, I'm doing some crazy stuff this year. I love doing the podcast. I got cast in a movie recently, which is a whole new thing for me. It's a little terrifying because I've done TV for days. And I can do that in my sleep. But a movie is a different thing. So I'm really excited about it. Also very nervous about it. And one of the roles is as a newscaster, perhaps, which fits. I've done that as a real anchor. So it's like, I've anchored ABC, and it's like, why not try that? So I don't know. Life just keeps moving, and you try new things. And you're really good at what you do, which really impressed me on the first podcast. So it's an honor to be with you, and I look forward to the next one.
Great, for sure. All right, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. I really appreciate
care.
It.
Bye-bye.
Metacortex Publishing hopes that you've enjoyed this presentation.
Please take a moment to listen to some other podcast offerings from Metacortex Publishing.
The Danceology podcast interviews the great masters of dance, the working professionals starring in today's most exciting shows, and the rising stars ready to amp up the craft. I'm your host, Edita from Dancing with the Stars. Join me as I dive into the world of dance, uncovering unique stories and the fascinating personalities of industry professionals on Danceology.
Hi, I'm Father Daniel Duplantis, a Catholic priest, martial artist, and host of the Karate Priest podcast. Have you ever wondered what the church teaches about different topics? Are you a martial arts enthusiast or just someone who wants to learn more about martial arts? I'd like to invite you to join me and many guests on my podcast as we cover topics of faith, everyday living, and martial arts on the Karate Priest podcast.
The No Earthly Explanation podcast investigates the things that are unexplainable, hosted by world-renowned investigative researcher Donald R. Schmidt and scientist Ellie Ringo. Follow them as they look for evidence for things that have no earthly explanation. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Every year, tennis players from around the world compete for excellence, triumphing against all odds to emerge the champions. I'm your host, Maddie Harrison. Join me as I get up close and personal with these dynamic individuals and find out what it takes to go for greatness. Let's go beyond the match.
Cult Following is a podcast that studies the personalities and common traits of cult leaders and their followers. Get the real story behind these infamous and oftentimes tragic cults from a new perspective, through exhaustive research, and from interviews with people that were there. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hi everybody, I'm Amber Rose, the religious hippie, and I host the podcast A Catholic's Perspective. Join me every 2 weeks as I release episodes targeted towards helping young Catholics navigate their ever-changing secular world while staying strong in their faith. Whether you are a Catholic or not, all are welcome here. So if this is something that interests you, feel free to tune in. You can find A Catholic's Perspective on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I hope to see you there. Bye!
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to rate and review this episode. This podcast is produced by Todd Fischer and Anthony Smith and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright. Any previously trademarked or copyright content is used by permission. Information and opinions stated in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Please be sure to visit the official website for Metacortex Publishing at metacortexpublishing.com or find us on social media for other unique content.